and thank you for joining Focus on Parliament, a show dedicated to making you understand your parliament. On this edition of Focus on Parliament, we take a look at yet another scandal that has enraged and infuriated the Ugandan public. We are talking about the mandatory digitization of number plates projects. To put the project into perspective, it shall be remembered that in 2018, after the gruesome murder of the then Member of Parliament for Arua Municipality, the Honorable Abiriga, the President of Uganda addressed the nations and enumerated 10 measures that would be taken to tighten the security of Uganda. Among these measures was the mandatory digitization of the number plates for the motor vehicles and the motorcycles. In 2019, in furtherance of this directive, it is reported that the president and his government awarded a contract to the Russian firm, the joint stock company Global Services, for a period of 10 years to digitize all the number plates in Uganda. Now, a couple of issues have come up that are related to the structure, that are structural and legal in nature. Some of the critics say that this project is ill-conceived and is not compatible with the structure, the infrastructure of Uganda, and is possible for abuse. Specifically, some argue that it is capable of intruding into individuals' privacy. Now, to discuss and unpack these questions is a distinguished panel of experts. On my immediate left is Mr. Lumala David, who is an IT specialist. Lumala, you're most welcome.
Thank you, and thank you so much, our viewers.
Next is Honorable Angelina Osege. Honorable Angelina Osege is the former woman member of Parliament for Soroti District. Honorable, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Harry, and good morning, viewers.
Last but by no means the least is Dr. Ojambo Robert, who is the head of Department for History at Kyambogo University. Dr. Ojambo, you're most welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure. Good morning, viewers.
Great. Let's start with you, Mr. David Lumala. You're the technologist here. You're the one who understands how digitization and chips and so forth work. One of the key reasons why this project is being introduced, so we are told, is to boost the security, the capability of the security organs to track those who could have been involved in the insecurity acts. Could you please take us through what we need to understand about the digitization of number plates?
All right, so once again, thank you for this opportunity. The idea of digitization of something gets to clear out that any kind of misconception or any loophole in terms of that would occur in terms of identifying something. So for people that travel abroad, especially, you take notice on airports, they don't check you like manually. So they probably make you walk through a particular machine, and wherever you go, there is probably someone using biometrics to check, a kind of chip, or rather a card that has a chip that you can, scan and get into something. So the process of digitization involves a way of doing away with the manual work and simplifying the way to verify something, So the kind of technology they are bringing in is the idea of using radio frequency identification, where you have to pull probably a card or a chip close to some other radio receiver, radio frequency receiver, to ease or to automate identification of something, the uniqueness or genuineness of something, or to quickly identify it, in short.
Okay. Given your understanding, is there technical capacity and infrastructural capabilities for us to roll out a project of this magnitude in Uganda?
All right. So from the perspective of Uganda, particularly, I think we are still lagging behind in terms of the infrastructure. You see, there are districts up to now in 2023 that you go to and you cannot find an ATM machine. And banking has been here for the past 20 or 30 years. You know, so if by 20 years into the new millennium, 2023, we've not yet gotten ATMs to each and every corner, I wonder whether we have the capacity at the moment to effect it wherever it is. But there is a reservation for at least urban centers, the way you saw with cameras being, put up in a very short while. I have hope that probably once we have we have everything going and ready, we can have a period of about 6 months to a year to have it function in most of the urban areas. Yeah.
But if it is dependent on, availability of cameras and installation of antennas for the RFID technology to work, the installed capacity in terms of electricity of Uganda is still very low. Even the CBD itself is not fully, lit. Then how can we talk about this high-level kind of technology?
All right, so it still comes back to commitment, because I was really surprised with the commitment the people who installed cameras had, like, how swift it was, how, it took effect, So now that it is, and then I think we should weigh in on the other option of probably now the insecurity aspect, because that was the main motivation behind it, like that was an eye-opener. So probably with urban centers, especially most of this, I would call it modern crime, like urban crime, things of surveillance and issues like that, they occur majorly in urban centers. And that gives me hope, that gives me a kind of thought that it could still be implemented. So it may not be so swift the way cameras were, but it could take some time, but at one stage it will be.
All right. Honorable Angelina, one of the thorny issues about this project is the manner in which the Russian firm was contracted. There was no bidding, there was no processes at all. We've seen in reports one of the critical ministries, that is a Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Honorable Kahinda Otafiri, coming out and say he's not aware. What do you make of our public procurement in light of what is happening, and also in light of scandals, public procurement scandals that we've seen over time?
Thank you again, Harry. I think that it is in Uganda we set up organs, we set up systems just for the sake of it. I remember when we brought up that PPDA law, it was because we were thinking of how to curb corruption, especially in government departments when it comes to procurement and so on. But with time, you realize that the same people who are supposed to use that law for the sake of Ugandans are the ones who are bypassing the law, especially when they are the proprietors. It is not the first time that in Uganda, because somebody in government is a proprietor of some business, they bypass the law. They bypass all the rules. I remember during the time of Kavera, when we suggested to ban Kavera, and actually we passed it. We said we are banning Kaveras in Uganda because of the danger to the environment and so on. Later we came to realize the manufacturing, the one who was manufacturing those Kaveras, the proprietor was a minister in government. And so it became difficult to implement. Till today, I don't think they have implemented it the way it was supposed to be implemented. I am not surprised that this company was procured the way it was procured, because there must be big men and women who have interest in it. They might just be having a face of Russia, but yet it is Ugandans. It is commonplace in Uganda. We have known it, we have seen it not once, not twice. And it is dangerous, because if we make our laws and then we are the same people breaking the law, it makes us even believe that it is ill-intentioned. Because if it is for the service of Ugandans, why wouldn't you follow, first of all, the procedures? Now, Parliament was stopped from investigating. Why would you think that would happen? Because they don't want to remove the cover of the real owners. They don't want to be revealed as to who actually owns this company. Or maybe not totally owning, but they have shares or they have interest somehow. So it is, it's very, very unfortunate. I know that having experienced it, some of these things are becoming weapons. It is weapons to crack down on divergent. I mean, divergent views. It is intended to crack down on those who will not dance the dance that you're expected to dance. I mean, it's terrible. It scares me. It scares me as a Ugandan, as somebody who thinks in this 21st century we should be exercising more freedoms. I mean, for Ugandans to enjoy safety, it does not mean curtailing on their freedom. We can have ways of doing things that will enhance our security, but also leave people to their rights. It comes with a pinch of, not just a pinch of salt. I think there is a rat in the cupboard. There is something that is not clear about this, the intentions of this thing. I remember in the 9th Parliament, in the 10th Parliament, we started this digitalization, not digitalization, but there was a company in the same line. Is it road safety? They even set up buildings all over the country as if even before we passed it in Parliament.
To inspect the
That
vehicles.
was Spega
Yes, it
To
compels
inspect
an
the
inspection
vehicle.
of vehicles.
Yeah.
I know that is where all this has come from.
And
now they have come back, but with advanced,
New
Yeah.
fashion.
a new fashion and a new name. And you wonder even just the necessity for it. Maybe we'll get in there. I don't know if I'm going ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Is it necessary?
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Let me bring in Dr. Ojambo. You know, still on procurement, this is not the first scandal of this nature. And most of these scandals which bypass normal procurement procedures, they always emanate from presidential directives. And in this particular case, we are told that it was not even discussed at cabinet. Otherwise, I don't think that the Honorable Tafire would be, you know, lamenting the way he is lamenting. What does this teach us about the, you know, power dynamics as a country, really? Well, how do we get here? And, you know.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. And you use the word teach. If there is a country or a group of people that do not learn are Ugandans. Scandals have not started happening in 2023.
Yeah.
This country has been scandalous. In fact, scandal is our definition. Just look at the people involved.
Yeah.
The main person here is Major General Jim Muhwezi. This is a name that I think in primary schools we can now create an exam of matching things. And when you say Jim Muhwezi and the other side there is corruption, people will be comfortably drawing the arrow to him, just like you can say electricity and light, then lake and water. And students will match very well. You remember the Gavi fund and many other scandals that have been in this country. The man even was impeached at one time in one of those parliaments. He was taken to prison. I remember one time I saw him being arraigned in court and taken to Luzira. Do you remember that time they were painting Luzira prison because there was a good prisoner who was coming? So you would be shocked if there was no scandal there.
Yeah.
But that is one. But two, the governmentality of Uganda puts us in doubts. You doubt whether we have a government because this is a very small thing. By the way, for viewers out there may think that putting a chip in a number plate is a very big thing. It's just like some of us who have ATM cards.
Yeah.
He has just talked about an ATM card. It has a chip. And it is that chip that stores the data, which has our name, how much money you have, which everything. So when you put somewhere, it reads. It doesn't need to travel to Russia to go and bring a company which does not exist for those people to put chips. It would have been even a coursework for students at the IT department in Makerere or any other university. And they would do it very well.
The company is Russian, but the operations are happening in Poland.
In Poland. So when you look at all these, for example, we already have a company that makes number plates in Uganda.
Exactly.
Tampeco, owned by Wavamno group of company. So what did you need with the whole thing? You just needed to add on the number plate a chip. As simple as that. Did you need to go to Russia? And if you needed to go to Russia, in my view, if we are looking at the real how government works, this is something that is involving 4 sectors or government or ministries. It involved the Ministry of Works, because they are the ones who control transport system in Uganda. It involves URA, which collects money, which is under Ministry of Finance. It involved the internal affairs, because it's dealing with the internal security of the people. Then lastly, it involved the Minister of Security. Because that thing, as the Honorable said, touches security of people, and you need to, even the nation. So you needed those guys to sit together and come up with how to do the thing. What happened? Most of them are reading like us on TV that there is a man went and outsourced a company in Russia, and then later they say, oh, the first meeting was in Dubai, then the thing works in. So it is a hoax. And for me, that is how the regime sustains itself. The regime in Uganda has a habit that every time there is a problem, you know, Jim has been on some Katebe for some time. He was somewhere he could not even win a seat in parliament. So they were seeing how they can return that part of the country back to the establishment. So Jim is handed after late General Tumwine, because he was the one handling that docket. They remove him and put Jim there. So wherever Jim is, there is a deal. He's a dealer. A deal man, and there are many deal men, even in parliament, the ones who are stopping this investigation. If you follow their history, I'm from a history background. They are deal men. They are deal men. So you would expect that Jim would not leave that chance to use that chance that came of number plates to do a deal. So to tell you, anybody who is surprised maybe has come to Uganda is a foreigner or has been not following how things happen in Uganda. Look at the privatization policy, which began in 1994. In fact, some of us call it grabatization policy. Then come to procurement, that PPDA Act. It's a very good law. But the thieves have now turned it into a vehicle for stealing. If there is anything in this country that really makes this country bleed, is that PPDA. Because the way it is followed and the people who man it are really terrible people. Now, when you look at this whole thing, you tend to think that Ugandans are in for it. And I'm telling you, it's going to be implemented. You have seen that the minister has said that for him is going to implement it, whether they're investigating it, whether IGG has stopped it, they are going to implement. And you need to look at his lips.
Okay.
You need to look
we'll
at,
come back
at his lips.
to that, Doctor, on how the Ugandans can fight back on some of these projects that they deem incompatible with their needs and aspirations. But just to push back a little bit, you mentioned something to do with the capacity, the technical capacity, then also, of course, the financial capacity of this Russian company. Part of what we are reading in the news and some of the available documents show that there was a committee that was commissioned to go to Russia and establish the technical and financial capability of this company. And they say that they didn't find any plant, any manufacturing plant by this company. Another time, actually, the company was declared bankrupt, and also established that there was no such kind of a project running in Russia.
Yeah, Harry. But before you even take me there, you just need to know why they're investigating. They're only investigating because they don't agree with it. And they don't agree with it. The ministry that is investigating should not make you think that now that minister is a very good man. No, because that minister also has his own history. You remember the Congo problems. Why didn't he investigate those ones? But it's because now they disagree. And for me, this disagreement is not based on saving Ugandans. The disagreement, in my view, this is my own view, is on eating. Who is eating and who is not eating. But let me go back to your facts. Yeah, this Russian company, according to the information we are getting, it is not there. Because when they tried to go to Russia, they found that even that technology that there is not used there. Instead, they used the one of a company in Poland, which company in Poland, looking at the history of Poland and Russia and these other things, there is a problem there. So the company does not exist. But now come back to Uganda. What these people wanted to do and where it has failed. For example, if General Tafira had accepted whatever they were proposing to him, there would be no problem. But they wanted to use Uganda police. They wanted to use Uganda police infrastructure and to be specific IT department to do this work. So when they went to the IT department in Uganda police, they found that these characters had been given a small corridor where they had put some 2 computers, and they had taken policemen to Chikandwa, Chikandwa, where they normally train ICT things of policemen, to train them so that they can start using this. Of course, the minister is not telling the truth. There is no way policemen can be taken to be trained, and the equipment is found in police without internal affair being in the know. So that's why I want to say it's just a disagreement. The company and most of the companies in Uganda here do not exist. These companies which work with the government do not exist. Now, let me just answer a little bit my colleague. Capacity for Ugandans to do the thing is just more than enough. And I agree with him. It may have not been able to take it to the whole country. I'll give you an example of the driving permits. We had been told that Ugandans don't have capacity to do driving permits. So they had gotten a company from South Africa, Face Technology, which was in Kyambogo there and was the one making this thing. When a good minister came, he said these things can be done by internal affairs and we can do them. So we are going to take over this work, and we started doing. And I'm telling you, anybody who has processed a driving permit in this country during the time of Face Technology and died, if he or she resurrected today and went and saw how we do driving permit,
it's amazing.
So simple. Amazing,
it's amazing,
better, and so because these are very simple things that small kids do on the streets of NASA and everywhere. So the capacity is there, but the problem is that when you use the government department or the people here, the eating is small, and yet you want to maximize the eating. Just imagine a number plate is going to cost us 710,000, something like that.
$200.
Yes, just a number plate, just to identify a vehicle, which should be given to a person free.
In Kenya, it's $25.
Yes. So, and when they asked the commissioner of URA, he was a little bit cagey, but the information was showing that the sharing is 85% to 15%.
So government is taking only 15 and then
85 to those mafias. So the mafias, mark you need to find out how much money was used to procure that company. That's when you will know that we are in trouble.
Great. Honorable, let me come back to you. Thank you so much, Ojambo, Doctor, for raising these issues and bringing them to the fore. Some of the issue raised by Dr. Jambo is about the government policy on empowering local producers or local manufacturers. He mentioned that we already had Tampeco, and I think another is Arnold Brooklyn, that has been manufacturing our number plates. And part of the query is why not empower these local producers to produce these number plates. And if you want to add the technology, maybe which they cannot produce at the moment, and then maybe bring in the Russian to add in that bid. So what then does it tell us about government priority? Because essentially you'd expect the government to empower local producers, enhance jobs, and keep the money within. But looks like the top officials are hell-bent toward giving jobs to the Russian and taking the money out of the country.
In Uganda, like we've always said, there are many policies. We are very good at producing policies, but we're also very good at abusing them. Now, this, and it's because we are not demarcating our roles and responsibilities. All opportunities are given by people who are well placed. Now, we are the ones talking about buy Uganda, build Uganda, buy Uganda. Bubu. And at the same time, we are the ones killing it. Why? Because we only say bubu when it is small things with small eating, and it is other people. But when it is people who have the power in their hands, we speak a different language. It's very, very unfortunate because that is why it is even very easy to abuse any system in Uganda. Because while the people who are responsible are supposed to be the watchdogs, supposed to make sure that implementation is done correctly, we are the first to abuse the system. And so anybody else who would want to abuse the system has the leeway to come in and do exactly that. So I don't know how Ugandans can get out of this kind of situation. But I think Ugandans have been hit so hard that they have reached a point of surrender. They are saying, if God does not help us, like one king said in the Bible, if God doesn't help you, what can I do? It looks like Ugandans have given up so much so that they are saying they have nothing to do even to help themselves. I think Ugandans can still rise up and say no to this because can you imagine, there is no country or there is no leadership that would want something fake to come into its own country.
Yeah.
Now we are talking about joblessness, and here we are removing people from potential job lines, and we are giving it to something else or to somebody else. But we are talking about Russia.
The report shows that about 500 Ugandans would lose their jobs to the Russian company.
That is it, and it is not actually a Russian company. It has been baptized a Russian company. That is why they refuse to do due diligence. Who does that? You are contracting somebody, you are putting in taxpayers' money, but you don't want to do due diligence. How sure are you that you are going to benefit from that company if it is not a fraud? That you are using somebody's name and behind it, it is somebody that we know who is doing it just to make some money. I have no words. I have no words because we have been put in a position that we are like, okay, it has happened. So what next can they do? What next can they do? We just but you can imagine, look at the cost of these number plates. And it is not just a one-off. There is a monthly subscription. Am I right?
Yeah.
A monthly subscription. How many people own vehicles that even deserve to be digitalized in that manner? If they had talked about government vehicles, probably because of the rampant abuse of government vehicles, I would understand. Because you'll find government vehicles doing things, going places where they ought not to go. You'll find one minister having 5 office vehicles, one for his children, one for his grandmother, the other one that is what we need to curtail. Because what is Uganda's problem? It is hemorrhage. of public resources. And if that is what we want to save, that is not the way to go.
All right, Honorable, you earlier alluded to the necessity of the project. Is it really necessary? Now, we are going to take a very short commercial break, and when we return, we shall continue with this conversation, looking specifically at the related human rights issues, whether the project is necessary and its feasibility. Now, please let us know about your thoughts in the comment section below.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. You are watching Focus on Parliament, and we are analyzing the issues that are arising from the mandatory digitization of number plate scandal that has enraged and, of course, infuriated many Ugandans. In the studio to discuss these issues with me is Dr. Ojambo Robert, Honorable Angelina Osege, and Mr. Lumala David. Now, before the break, we looked at the technical and financial capacity. Now, let's shift our gears now and look at the necessity of the project. We are told that billions and billions of Ugandan shillings are going to be spent on the project. A Ugandan taxpayer is going to be requested to pay up to 735 Ugandan shillings to acquire a digitalized number plate. This is a lot of money. This is not only for motor vehicles, but also for motorcycles. And we are told that all this is in the name of security. I'll start with you, Dr. Jambo, then I come back to my brother, Mr. Lumala, David, on the issue of really the necessity. Is it worth it?
I'll give it in two ways. For any country, security is paramount.
Yeah.
And if it is based on research and intelligence, that the only way we can curb our security, especially from people who are using motorcycles and the other motorized equipment to move around and abate crime, that wouldn't be a problem. But as I suggested earlier, if this was in a governmentality process where a government sits down, because a government is not supposed to think like a human being.
Yeah.
A government is a system. It takes ideas from human beings and puts them in a system to run a state, because the work of government is to run a state. And the state is where we have security. This thing would have been okay, but in a phased up manner and taking, for example, what was their findings? What was the biggest threat at that time? They told us it was border. Because the police reports have been showing us that most of the crime is done by border. And I can attest to this, that I had a theft somewhere, and we could not use police dogs to find it because a border was involved. So the first way would have been to deal with the border. And if that solution is for border. But now, if you are saying it is for security, And you are saying that buses, these lorries, and I think even tractors, because even tractors have number plates, all have to have number plate. Then it means that you are shooting above or below the target. That is one. Two, where is the crime? Because in other countries, for those who have been in other countries, in the US, even our neighbors here, Southern Sudan, they have different number plates for different regions. For example, is this problem all over the country, or we could have first put it in the business, in the center or somewhere? So that we would have understood. Then number three, if it is vehicles, as Honorable was suggesting, is it all vehicles? Are you going to put even in the vehicle that an ambulance? You need also to put that thing, an ambulance for security, unless you convince us. So you find that the motive, first of all, was not good. And now the biggest suspect is the person implementing it. Because this person has always been implementing not right things. For him, it does not work for the government. They normally work for their personal interest. You remember when he was bringing DTT and many of these things when he was a minister of health. Really things which are shocking. So I want to say that, of course, my colleagues, the politicians, have been making noise that they want to be tracked, they want to, and they are asking politicians also, are you criminals? Because the thing is looking for criminals. But I wouldn't mind, but it needs a very good framework. For example, at what time is this chip going to track someone? Is it always, or they will be looking for a certain, maybe a vehicle has made a problem and they are tracking it. In our vehicle systems, we have tracking systems, some of us, but it's not used every time. It's not used every time. We only use it maybe when the vehicle is lost or when the vehicle is misplaced. So they need a framework and to explain to citizens at what time is this tracking going to happen. Is it on a daily basis? Like, for example, they put a system in our phones. But does it mean that they are tracking our phones on a daily basis? I think the answer is no. They only track you when the time is. So the messaging, the government of Uganda is not very good at giving message to the people and having people on board so that they understand. When people don't understand something, they start suspecting everything. But lastly, in Uganda, really, there are certain things that are fast-fetched. For example, the cameras. Can anybody come and tell us how far the camera have been helpful? I normally hear when the police is giving information, they talk in generalities. There was a lady who was suspected to have drowned in Nakawa. And the cameras were supposed to help us. They did not help until they had to use other means of investigation. They found the lady in somebody's septic tank.
What we are told is that about 70% of these cameras do not work.
So for me, my view is that sometimes when these things are given to a gullible person, he says, oh, this is a very good thing. But what about those ones which have been there? Are they helping us? For example, there was a lady of Nup who was knocked in Nakawa by a police, allegedly by a police van. And they went to the camera department to find out, was he really knocked? And the camera people said that day the cameras were down. Really, how can cameras which are supposed to be 24/7 monitoring the country be down at the time when they are needed the most? You remember that time was campaign time. You need the cameras to be on. So even this vehicle thing, they are going to make people spend their money and the time and what, but they are not going to be effective. For example, In Uganda, we have people who are driving vehicles without number plate. And when they come out, they look like they are state operatives, isn't it? Most of them. I don't think any simple person can. They drive with the number plates which are not, how are they going to deal with those ones? Those ones. So even the number plates, the way they are they really doing the work that they're supposed to do? They showed you one time when 3 vehicles had the same number plate. So in Uganda, first of all, if you put something which is like the way I said, in a place where there is no system, it only creates chaos. So this thing is going to create more chaos than solutions.
Fair enough. I am inclined to agree with you that without proper systems, really, it's a wastage. Let me come to you, Mr. David Lumala. I mean, I was reading some of the comments on social media, and to me, but we are very unserious a country. Consider this: we still run manual traffic light system. I mean, our traffic light system is still intelligent, and we are now talking about a nationwide intelligent transport management system. And I also read somewhere that some of the consultations that were done indicated that the level of dust in the country would affect the number plates, so the chip wouldn't be able to be read. Remember, you're the technician here. You're the IT expert. Really, is this project feasible? Can it even help track a single criminal, given the infrastructural problems that obstruct its way?
All right, just a short one on the earlier submissions you people made. The question of the question of having a Russian company, I doubt also whether the company is Russian, because for Russian companies, we know it is a Russian name, first and foremost. You saw it with Sputnik, the vaccine, Sputnik. This name is English. I doubt whether that could be Russian, first and foremost. So the other thing is the concerns of whether we have so much dust and it probably can plate the other chip. They are genuine things. They are genuine concerns being aired out of social media, because sit down, take a minute, take a step back and think about it. There are times where we had actually, even now, there are places you go to when there isn't network. You go to somewhere, you have to call the other person and say, do you hear me? No. Do you hear me? That is the kind of challenge, that's the kind of hindrance that could also happen with these other chips. So again, the challenges of, that it comes back to the system, So such a system would command you have a proper road infrastructure so that you do not have challenges of dust and things like that. Because if something is plated with dust, probably the signal cannot be. You go to places where you have to verify with a biometric. And you put your thumb onto the screen, and they say they cannot read it. Say clean. Probably you try about 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a mere thumbprint and a clean screen. So now compare the dust and the signal to pass through the dust to the other plate. So there is a question as well. So they have a concern. They have a legitimate concern about it, not working in that angle, and it is technically, it may not work in that situation. So the other thing about whether we need the entire system at large. So I would say yes and no. Let me begin with the yes bit. There is a genuine concern. There is a genuine reason to have such systems, because even when you go abroad, where the systems work, you cannot, the basic way to track you, the best key way to probably locate you in case of an emergency, in case of an something bad happening, is through your movement.
But
all right, so
Lumala, I mean, let me just push you a little back on this. When you look at African countries, Uganda would be the first one implementing this sort of a technology. And around the world, there are only 4 states that implement this kind of technology. And in all of these 4 states, not for security-related reasons.
Okay, so now that answers the no bit, because I was giving you the 2 cases.
Yeah.
So for the yes bit, there is a genuine concern, for easy tracking and following up on cases in case of something bad happening. Then the no answer is, it comes back to the issues of ethics, and then privacy, the genuine privacy concerns are around what could go wrong with this system.
Yeah.
So look at it this way. To what extent, what's the limit of this data accumulated about my movement of the day, and anything happening around me, stop and say, you know what, this is now beyond. Who casts that limit? Who casts that? Where does it stop? Even when the data has been accumulated, I need to have, as a person who has generated this data, because we're having the same debates with the people of Facebook, with the people of Google. I'm just using the internet all over and over again, but what happens to the kind of activity I create? So it comes back to the no. Sometimes, now that these are governments that operate opaquely, like we do not know what happens beyond the screen, anything can go wrong. And for that matter, I may say no. Probably we need some other mechanism of doing that, what the goals of this system would be, but not directly
So you're saying
hanging me in.
A jealousy husband
Definitely.
who wants to track the movements of the wife
Could use that system.
or a general somewhere who is interested in a certain young girl who needs to be tracked. You're saying that
Yes. When it ceases to be utilization of the system, but now abuse. Yeah.
All right, let me come to you, Honorable Osege. Part of, I think, of the main issues that really concern the Ugandans is the intrusivity of this technology, the privacy of people that are going to be tracked. This is a wide-scale national surveillance system. I mean, if the government wants to know where you are, whether you're a criminal or not a criminal, whether you're a potential criminal, not a potential criminal, they can track your movements. Especially if you're a politician who is not of the right color. Yeah.
He's not speaking the same
language.
Yeah. What's your reflection on that
language.
kind of threat?
First of all, Harry, I think that this thing, Harry, is not necessary at this point in time. Yes, we have been having security threats. How much of it has occurred in this country? And I mean, who are the category of people that are threatened actually, security-wise? I think there are some things, basics that we must first of all do before we jump into this kind of technology. The IT guy has said dust can affect. How much of dusty roads do we have in Uganda? Compared to the tarmac roads. I was going through the park one time a few months ago, and I was told only one camera works or along that stretch until you reach you exit the park on the other side towards Parkwatch. And I was asking myself, so then what is have we gotten the benefit of these cameras? And then too, when we get these things, we are so excited about them, but are we buying the right quality first of all? You'll be amazed. In Parliament, they installed a new security system in 20 that is in the 10th Parliament. But a few months down the road, the system had died. So we even the things look. They say the lifespan of Chinese is, I don't know. Everything Chinese
or
is
lifespan of Chinese products.
Like products, but they are as short as the Chinese.
The Chinese national watching the show could be offended. We need to clarify that we are talking about the most Chinese products are exported to Africa.
They have categories because China also exports to the US. But the quality that they bring to Africa is the worst that you can ever find. because for them they look at the cost. So I think while it may be necessary, this is not the right time. This is not the right time. There are certain things that we must first put in place before we get into this. And who are we concerned about? In a population of 45 million, how many people's security is threatened to the extent that we need this kind of surveillance? And who is the taxpayer that is going to foot that bill? Look at somebody who is having their children in school, and government is giving them 7,000 a term for UPE, having to pay for a motorcycle that is riding to raise money, school fees for his child, something more than what government is giving them. I think it, like Professor said, it needs to be categorized. It needs to be put in stages. Yeah. And we need to identify what category of people, what class of people need this kind of, we can be involved in this kind of thing. Because sincerely, you put it in a bus, for example. A bus carries 75 people. How are you going? What is it? Is it to track accidents? How difficult? What value does it add for a public transport system? What value does it add? And most Ugandans, that is the transportation they use. How many people move in private cars in Uganda? There may seem to be many cars, but how many out of the 45 million? So I think that it is not the right time to, Ugandans are not at a level to afford that kind of thing. Already we are being milked dry by this economy, by the government rather. The taxes Ugandans are paying and what gets back to them is incomparable. Now you bring out this as well. How is the common Ugandan going to benefit?
Shouldn't Parliament have been more vigilant to stop the project?
This is Parliament that has been stopped from doing what they are supposed to do. You know, and even then, what does Parliament do? Parliament has been rendered just advisory. And the law assumes that the executive is a good listener. And they consider, they take it they take well what comes out of Parliament and what comes out of all the other arms of governance. But that is not the case. Parliament will decide one thing. If you look at the decisions of Parliament and you compare with the rate of implementation by the executive, you will be surprised. We are actually wasting time in Parliament because Parliament will sit, do studies on a situation, on maybe a law, and when it comes out, government just bypasses it. They say we can either take it or not take it. You are only advisory. How do you render a whole arm of government? That is what needs to be corrected in the law. How do you render a whole arm of government just advisory?
I would like you to educate me and maybe our viewers. Isn't the nature of this project one that requires parliamentary approval before the executive can go on with the implementation?
According to the law, yes.
Yes.
Because it has to be passed by Parliament. Parliament has to pass an enabling law for it to operate. Now, there is no law passed by Parliament. The basics have not been done. How is the thing? What is it supposed to address? What is the problem? Yes, we have talked about insecurity. We have talked about accidents on the roads and so on. But is that really it? Does it require us spending that colossal amount of money just for that? Do we require it at this point? You know, this is this is when we say that they ignore Parliament. Parliament is there to fulfill, I don't know whether protocol or to make us look democratic, to make us look like we are practicing good politics. But there is nothing that Parliament decides that the executive takes, except if they speak back what they have spoken to them. It is actually the executive that instructs Parliament to do what they want. Then Parliament does what they want. When you question anything, it is not taken, it is bypassed. There are many times as Parliament who have adjusted the budget. Yeah. You know, that is one of the prerogatives of Parliament. But does it happen in actual implementation? No, it doesn't happen. So it is very, very unfortunate, but that is actually what happens in this country. So.
Fair enough. Let me bring in Dr. Ojambo, and our time is almost up. But to remind ourselves, this project was brought up on the heels of the gruesome murder of the Honorable Abiriga, then Member of Parliament for Arua Municipality. So it's all about security. And a viewer watching this show will not help but conclude that it's not, that this panel is of the view that it is not necessary, or it is not the most crucial project, not cost-effective project to tighten or curb the insecurity within the country. So, Doctor, what are some alternatives that the executive should be considering or should have considered in order to enhance the security of Ugandans?
Yeah, I'm not a security man, but I read security. Security is not one bullet. You can't use one bullet to sort out security matters. Security begins with the people themselves. That is the first thing. Why do some areas become insecure than others? I remember during that time, it was not only Abiriga. That was the mode of eliminating people who, I don't know, had problems with who. You remember it started with the sheikhs. Sheikhs were killed left and center. In fact, sheikhs at least exported the insecurity even up to outside Kampala. There were sheikhs killed in Mayuge. There was a sheikh shot in this other place. So it started with the sheikhs. From sheikhs, it moved to politicians. And Abiriga, unfortunately, in fact, it went first to security security operatives themselves. It started with the Kagezi, the lady from the judiciary. Then later there was Chigundu. Then later there was Kawesi, and then Abiriga. But if you look at the pattern, was almost the same. The pattern was the same. Somebody is found driving or moving, going somewhere, is shot, and the people disappear. And then the police say the ones who killed were on motorcycle. So I really thought that the good security that we have, you know, we have really said that we have a very good security, should have, first of all, found out the motive. What is the motive? That is the first thing. The motive. After finding the motive, then now you go to the people who implement. How do they implement it? And I don't think number plate would help us to find the motive. I don't think that number plate would help us to find the gang, because the gang can, if they know that now number plates are tracked, they can walk on foot. They can drive without number plate. In this country, you have seen vehicles come, they don't have any number plate, they carry out an operative, and later the security organs say, we know that car was ours. So if they use that method, how are you going to get them? So number plate per se, in fact, if you are giving percentage, it may not even solve 5%, because there are many other things. The nature of our society, the guns in the hands of the people, because these guns, which are killing people, we have never heard that they have been stolen from these barracks or from this police. They have been saying they are private guns. Now, how do you find those private guns? Then the last one, if you are to deal with the security, you need to put barriers, serious barriers to those guys, so that when anybody risks and does such a thing, he or she must face it. But look at our judiciary. Look at our police. Do they have capacity to pursue these people even in the court of law until they are convicted? The system is still very weak. Sometimes you sympathize with the police. They are advertising from the time of the scene. Even the criminal, they are helping him to run away. Because if you are putting the scene on TV and you are saying the one who killed was a Muslim, so you are just killing the whole thing. So the judicial system, is it okay? The judicial system in Uganda is very weak on pursuing capital offenses to the finality of it because of evidence. Look at all cases that we have had, even where they have convicted people. You look at the case of this lady of
Joan
the,
Kagezi?
this lady in Mukono. Now the people are saying they are not willing to give to become witnesses. Look at the case of Bijambia in Masaka. The witnesses are becoming hostile. They are saying, I was beaten to come here to say this. I am not willing to do so. So that's why the Sigirinyas had to go home, because even if the court judge was really a cadre, there is nothing he can do about it. So in matters of criminal offense, you must prove to the court beyond reasonable doubt. Are they able to do that? Because that would scare the criminals and they get out of the thing. That's what I'm calling barriers to crime. So the system is still weak. We need a multi-dimensional approach. Improve on our police. Look at our police. I stay in Namugongo. And where I stay is about 2 kilometers to the nearest police post. And the police post has always 2 people in Chalwajara. In Chalwajara there. So if men came to my village and they decided to beat us and even cut off our legs, what will police do? The capacity of police is just so thin. You find that dignitaries, MPs and big people in government have taken away all the policemen. You find that even now, I was shocked that even CEOs of organizations like UBTEB, UNEB, men whom even if somebody found on the road cannot recognize them. By the way, I cannot recognize the executive secretary of UNEB. I don't know him. Has a vehicle in front, a vehicle in the middle. He has 7 bodyguards with the 2 in the vehicle. And remember, at home there must be 2. This friend of mine in Insurance Regulatory Authority. That he also has people, sharpshooters guarding him. So you find that communities don't have police. For example, look at those murders where they were taking place. What time did it take police to reach there? I give you an example of Kawesi. It was just near a police post. Near a police post. And if it was a functional police post, those guys were supposed to be put out of action from there. But imagine, they had, in fact, some of us knew before the police post knew that they had killed somebody there. So how do we improve on police and its capacity?
Motivation
How
issues,
do you improve on the investigative capacity of the police and the CID? How do you improve on the judicial system to convict the criminals? And if the criminals go to jail, how do you even have capacity to keep them there? They keep appealing the cases, and when they appeal the cases, they are released. Because when you're on appeal, beginning with the example of Kazini, you remember Kazini died when he was supposed to be in jail, but he came out because he had appealed the case. So since then, when somebody appeals the case, he's supposed to go home because they assume that things are the same. So there is a lot of problem in the country. Then the corrupt political system, whereby one group of people do not make crimes. For example, you just look at the problems in our society. Government vehicles and government authorities do not commit crime. They can drive on any side of the road. They can knock you and even cane you, and you do nothing. So if you have a country like this, and it starts with the topmost. If a president has special roads which he passes on and nobody should pass on, so the RDC who represents the president in a district says if the president has these rights, I also have them. So once you have a corrupt system like the one we have in Uganda, you are bound to have insecurity, and it is just the beginning.
Professor, I have a party mobilizer in my district for this party in power. They have a bodyguard.
So if you have a country like that, so we need to put systems. We need to put systems. If we say in a country that we don't drive on right, nobody should drive on right, including the president, because the president is not above the law. For example, some of these people, some of them, the criminals, are state operatives. How do you separate state operatives from criminals? And you can only do that by making sure that, for example, arrests are only done in a known way. In Uganda now, a Kamunye can bring soldiers to arrest you. Then the other day, it is this other thing. It's called what?
Drone.
A drone. I used to think drone.
Thank you, Doctor. Our time is fast spent, but I would like to give each one of us about 30 seconds to, tell our viewers what Ugandans can do. To Ugandan who is there infuriated and enraged by a scandal after scandal, by projects that they perceive are not a priority, how can they fight back? How can Ugandans, push back on this project and obtain fairness? And we'll start with you, Mr. Lumala.
All right. So, just like I always say, it is an information age. So having information is the very first step to that game. So, besides, take a look at examples. Around us. I told you in Kenya, the same kind of operation is being, worked out, but at $25 per number plate. Per digitalized number plate, because it's not like you're buying an entirely new number plate, trying to push even the ones that had the old ones to purchase these new ones. Okay. So get to draw a comparison now between $25 and $73 and $200. Yeah. You see, now you see that's the grievance, that's the imbalance. It loses sense. It makes no meaning. So get to understand that now as a citizen you bear that responsibility, but they will have if you remain isolated or naive and not knowing what is happening, you cannot, of course, put up an argument. No. You see, so the basic thing is getting in the know and understand, that actually, yes, there is the angle of the good things, but then they can be this very system can be abused in this particular situation. So, the kind of decision you make with the information you have would now probably awaken the person trying to push this on you. But if they push it when you are not even aware, that is the first way to become a victim. Secondly, I said that system could be bad or good. You see? So, get to involve all the necessary parties that can force a change on this policy. You see, you don't need to, you may not need to go and throw stones over there because that may not take you anywhere. But if you have people like Honorable here, if you have informed people like Doctor here, their voices can be heard when they say something, probably. And if it takes, one voice not to be heard, probably they can combine masses and they have 1,000 voices who could, make an impact. Right. So get to know something that is happening, then involve the informed voices, make a community, make a unique and sound one single voice that can probably cause a change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lumala. Honorable Osege.
I think that Ugandans must put it out there clearly that this is not necessary at this point in time. There are more biting problems for Ugandans. We are already crying about our budget deficits. Is that where we must put our money? Even when we don't have enough, we cannot raise enough. I think that these are some of the things we can postpone. And I want to urge CSOs, I want to urge leaders at all levels. Like he has said, get information and let's be able to sensitize people. A sensitized community is an empowered community. If they don't know anything, there is nothing they can say about it. Let me tell you, people just knowing what to do and speaking one language is power enough.
Thank you. Last, Doctor.
I think we can borrow from the TV tax. I remember they wanted to introduce a TV tax in this country. And the people came up and for the first time, the members of parliament helped in this area. In my view, they went and rejected this thing and it did not work. Yeah. So we got we got into the digital TV system without paying a tax. We only pay for the fee. If you want, you pay. If you don't want, you don't pay. But at first, it had to be everybody to pay. So I think the members of parliament need to be encouraged because right now they are confused. The speaker is telling them no discussion of this matter. I think they should put pressure on the speaker and he changes his mind because the speaker is sitting on that seat on behalf of the people of Uganda. He's not sitting there because he's a wonderful guy, talented like maybe Chiputegei. No, he's just there because the people have put him there. So we need to continue putting, in fact, we need to push our MPs wherever we are so that they can go and besiege the speaker to allow this matter to be discussed. But they should not only discuss. The IGG has already put a stoppage to this. The parliament just needed to empower the IGG, and the IGG, the good thing, operates within the law. So that is the thing. Then I think the most affected people, by the way, somebody may think that it is those ones with the vehicles. No, the most affected people in this are the lowest people in our society, because this cost economically is going to be pushed to them. So the people out there need to push the powers that be. If possible, they have walked to the president to request a number of things. I think this time we need a group of people to work, because this matter, by the way, if I can give you, was raised, if Wavamuno had not raised it through Kasita, because Kasita are the ones who went to complain in parliament. So we need the many Kasitas to go and complain, because Kasita were saying that once these number plates are expensive, they will not sell vehicles because of that, the cost being put on the last person. So Kasita needs to be joined by. The problem in this country is that the elite normally think that these things don't affect them. They think, these are things which affect other people. But they forget that they are the burden bearers. So groups need to come up, workers' organizations to push, and such things should not come as a burden to everybody in Uganda, as Honorable said, when people really need every coin to salvage their life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Robert Ojambo, Honorable Angelina Osege, Mr. Lumala David, thank you. Thank you indeed for honoring our invitation. And thank you very much to our viewers for always tuning in. I have been your host, Harris Ocampo. Please do tune in next Saturday, but remember to always leave us a comment so that we understand what you think about the views expressed on this show. From the crew and myself, we wish you a glorious weekend.